We're going to go ahead and get started, folks. Hello and welcome to the Visiting Filmmakers series online, curated by Associate Program Director Cynthia Fuchs. The Visiting Filmmakers series has brought films and artists to the Mason campus for 20 years. In its new incarnation, the series brings these artists right to your home screens. Visiting Filmmakers series online is sponsored by Film and Video Studies at George Mason University, along with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, the College of Visual and Performing Arts, the English Department, School of Art, Global Affairs and Global Programs, College of Visual and Performing Arts, Kritos Series, Arts and Context, University Libraries, Film and Media Studies, the Interdisciplinary Curriculum Committee, History and Art History, University Life, and Women and Gender Studies. My name is Benjamin Steger, and I'll be your host today with guest speaker Tony Marquez. Tony, we're very excited to have you here today. A couple of notes for y'all to take note of as we have this discussion here. You'll see on the right side of the Cisco meeting, the WebEx meetings, that names of participants are listed. And if you hover on your own name, you'll see a little hand icon that will come up. That's to ask questions. Ideally, it's not ideal to have, until you're ready to ask a question, it's probably better to have your microphone set to mute because you can get a lot of feedback and audio noise if we're all live all at the same time. But certainly we are going to have lots of time for your questions, and we look forward to hearing those questions. So please keep in mind what questions you have for Tony. So Tony, tell us to start with just a little bit about yourself and what year you graduated from the Mason Film and Video Studies program.
I graduated in 2012, spring of 2012. After that, I was able to land an internship with the help of Dr. Lunt. Worked in a government contracting agency with the video production side at CACI, which led to meeting different freelance producers and other workers in the industry that led to different types of jobs like travel channel and discovery before I moved out to LA.
And sorry, I forgot to mention for our audience, the topic that we're exploring today is that transition from film school to the industry. So we're curious to know your insight on all of that. So as far as the decision to move to LA, why did you decide to make that decision? And yeah, what led you to move out to LA to pursue your career?
Yeah, a couple of different things. One, I think with some of my friends from Mason, we all talked about it. It was kind of a dream, kind of take that life chance. And then some personal reasons. My family was selling our family house that I grew up in. So then instead of just getting an apartment down the road, I was 25 at the time. So I said, we should just go for it. Another fellow alumni who will do this later on, she went out a couple months before me. So then my current roommate and I actually decided, let's give it a shot as well. Kind of said, like, give it a year or two and see if it works out or not.
Okay. So what are some of the practicalities of that though? Like, so you have to, first you have to get out there and get set up with a place to live and all that. So can you talk to us a little bit about that process for you? And then the process of, job searching out there and looking for work and getting work to support yourself.
Yeah. Getting work is definitely one of the hardest things, but to get set up, I was lucky enough for two reasons. When I was working prior with the Travel Channel, I actually got to visit Los Angeles for a week for work. which led me to be able to explore, get the feel of the city, see if I actually even liked the vibe of it. And I also had a cousin of mine living out here who I actually had to reconnect with after like 12 years. The only interactions we actually had together was through Facebook and like Xbox. So when I went to go visit the first time, I reached out and we got to reconnect. And then after that, I think I visited LA two more times before actually making my decision that I'll move out there. And I got to explore different neighborhoods, seeing the price range, um, seeing where I could fit in, and things like that. In terms of work, the one coworker I had for the travel channel, he was actually in LA, and I kept in touch with him. Um, Everything about this industry is really your network. So I kept in touch with him. He told me if I actually decided to move out here, he would try and hook me up with different people, and he came through when I reached out to him, and it was a tough start for the first year, definitely. But I took a lot of low paying jobs. I took a lot of free jobs. I reached out to schools, online, anything that I could really find and would hire me, I would take it. Which eventually led to more work and bigger types of jobs.
Can you tell us what some of those small jobs were and what specifically what type of roles you were doing on those productions?
Sure. So on New York Film Academy, USC, um, kind of similar to what we have at George Mason, where we could reach out to locals if they wanted to help out on our senior projects or student films. That was actually a great way to start. And there's so many schools out here that are doing really kind of big productions in a sense, and their network kind of helped out creating my own. So I started off getting indie work on student films for like camera assisting, grip swing, things like that, PAing, and then that led to one thing to another. And I think one of the biggest breakthroughs for my career, I was working on an indie web series. It was low pay. It was like, but still decent pay actually, out of all things considered. But um, the director of that indie web series is actually DGA Union. So he was actually an assistant director for some big television shows, and I was a B camera operator for them. And I told them like I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be on bigger sets, things like that. And he gave me an opportunity to PA for him on a TV show for 2 days, and then you know he liked me enough so that we kept in contact. And then it was kind of hard to gauge it because I didn't hear from him for like 3 more months after that. But then he gave my name out to some other people, who then gave out my name to other people, and it was kind of like a snowball effect after that. But I would say don't be afraid to take the free work, take the low paying work, because you never know what it could lead to.
And for our students, that are thinking of doing a similar thing, can you give them an idea about what a day rate is like when you're first out there, and how much money you're typically earning on those type of shows, the really low budget stuff?
Yeah, so on those low budget gigs, it was tough payment, but you're it really ranged. Sometimes I was making like $75 or $125. Um,
Hey,
12 hours, 14 hours, and I mean they'll feed you. There's like snacks and crafty and meals, which you guys will probably learn to. You'll have to do it on your own projects. You kind of have to feed some people. But yes, and then sometimes free. I just was grinding it out, and um, definitely had to find different ways of income when you're living like that. Um, I drove Uber for a year and just was like meeting people and learning the lay of the land as well.
I want to backpedal just a little bit. One of the things going back to the decision to move out to LA, if you could talk about some of the fears you had about doing that, and also some of the obstacles that were standing in the way of making this happen.
Yes, I was definitely afraid. I was definitely afraid of losing a lot of money, for one. I mean, that's a big risk. I saved up a good amount. I was able to move back home post graduation to save up, which helped. But I was definitely afraid of moving, the logistics of it, and to be honest, I was kind of afraid of failure in a way. Um,
What would failure mean? What does that mean? What would that mean for you?
if like for myself personally, I gave myself 2 years because that's what other people have told me, like to get in the groove of things to see if you actually like it. And that this type of work because it's definitely different than other jobs that I've had. But I guess for me, moving back home and not being able to satisfy my need to explore, that would have been a little disappointing for me. Because it is exploration. You have to give yourself room to try and fail. But that was one thing for me. I didn't want to like have one obstacle set me back all the way, go home. Um, Other obstacles that came along was definitely people's attitudes. It's you kind of have to manage a lot of personality out here. I'd say for sure, especially when in terms of your student projects and then working in reality or documentary worlds, it's usually like a smaller knit group. So when you get like personalities of like stars or 100 people in a crew, it can be kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then you were discussing that you got out there, you got on, hustled on a bunch of low budget shows, not getting paid much. You met, somebody that, had further connections and got you hooked up with other people. But I'm curious also about were you giving out a lot of resumes and were you sending your reels out to a lot of people and is that part of the game for you out there?
Yes, it's definitely part of the game. I can't say that a lot of that actually came to fruition. I would say that it's definitely a hustle that you need. I think you should do um, because the right people will eventually see your work and your talents and things like that. But the percentage I'd say that people reach back out to me from these cold calls or these cold emails were pretty low. And that's I guess another obstacle. You have to like really dig deep to get all these rejections all the time, or not even a rejection. It's just you're getting ghosted.
Yeah.
But I would say that I am still really a person that will will reach out and try and keep in contact with people. I do post my work on social media, online, things like that. And surprisingly enough, every once in a while, it will be picked up. Someone else will see it, and they can recommend you for something. And I would say, yes, you should do it, but don't expect it to just like hit off.
And what do you think, for somebody that goes out and freelances such as you did, what are the types of qualities and skills that employers are looking for? What's getting you, what would you recommend to students, what kind of qualities and skill sets should they have to get hired and be somebody that gets hired over and over again?
Nice. First and foremost, I think really yeah, having a really good attitude, I think. It definitely it's like your skills of artistry and everything like that, that will definitely help out. But I think when when you're on a show or a job that's going to be 12 to 14 hours, like 60 hours a week, you're with these people more so than you were with your family or loved ones. So you're going to want someone who they like to be around, to be honest. And now that I've been here longer and I'm seeing new faces come up, I'm like, I get it. Um, so I think, especially when you're starting out, be humble, show that you can work, and then, you know, maybe ease your way into saying, like, oh, I know how to do this, or I'm trying to pursue that. Because when it gets all crazy and people are like focused on what needs to be done, they might brush you aside. You might get your feelings hurt for a little bit, but um, don't give up on trying to communicate at what you actually want to do. But definitely be nice.
What about, since your time out there, what has been most surprising? What are the discoveries you've made since moving to LA and working in the industry there?
um, I'd say to build off of that and the last question, I think it's actually pretty surprising how many people are actually willing to help you if you if you express what you want. Actually, I found that to be pretty surprising in a way because I felt before I moved out here, there's like a connotation of what's like LA or Hollywood or something, where people will put you in your place or something. But I think if you do have a good attitude and you show like that you can work hard and you're determined and ambitious enough, if you express what you want to do and how you want to create and your work ethic, people will want to help you.
Um, any anything that was sort of exhilarating production wise, or any moments that are like on set that you're like, whoa, you saw, learned something really cool, or it just was a really great experience?
Two moments that really caught my attention and made me feel like, oh wow, this is kind of it. Was one of my first bigger shows that I hopped on to was Lethal Weapon, the TV series, which I, by the way, I didn't really enjoy it or like the show, but when I was there, and you're reading the call sheet and you're reading the size, and you see on the bottom, I'm gonna film 1/8 of a page today, and I'm like, all right, like, cool, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go see my friends. I'm gonna eat. It's like a Friday night, and that 1/8 of a page took longer than like shooting 6 pages, and there was like an action scene. You're just like, wow, this is a whole lot for something that you see for 5 seconds in the show or something. You see the
Wow.
setup of it and the lights that come down and how they're moving around everything. And then another similar instance was um, this music video with Ariana Grande. They had the makeshift set, like kind of what that was in Inception, the rotating one. And again, the same thing. It was 30 seconds of the song, but that took all day just for the safety of it. So it's interesting to see how long some of these things can take. So when you all are shooting your projects or starting to get um, involved in that stuff, don't be surprised or don't get down on yourself if you're taking all your time on something. They do it all the time.
That's good to know. Good to know. Talk a little bit about, freelancing and how, what students, that go out and do freelance, what they need to expect, and then just the nuts and bolts of how to survive, because the work comes and goes, right? So
Yeah.
how do you prepare yourself for that, and how do you make a living as a freelancer?
That's definitely an ongoing learning experience for me. I'll definitely say that, especially with everything going on. Um, I'd say when you're starting off, um, lean on the people that you know and just make sure that whatever you're doing, that remember this is your reputation. So I remember when I think when I was in class, I don't remember if it was your class or not. It might have been Dr. Lunt really, really early on, but when they say things like, "Oh, it's not really what you know, it's who you know," things like that. But I came to like a mentality to um, further that it's not really what you know or who you know, it's really who knows you in a sense. So if you get it, it's like if Professor Steger was to talk to me or talk to someone else about me, then that person would hire me through Ben's trust. So it's really a word of mouth game. You want to get your name out there as much as possible and just do good enough work that whoever knows you will recommend you. And to that end, you really don't know who can get you work at that point. Um, when I was freelancing, even in DC, there are people. My sister works at a restaurant, and then I would never think that she was going to help me out with video production because she, you know, is far from it. But then she knows clients that do photography or they need help for their website or something like that. And that could just lead into more and more work. So definitely just hold up to your end of your reputation and do good work as much as possible. And then in terms of surviving, um, that's a good one because you know we're out here trying to do that as well. I would say definitely put a savings away, learn how to do your unemployment. That's going around. That's all the rage these days.
Indeed.
So, yeah, I definitely had to learn that too. Is when I first moved out to get that situated, and I would really. It took me a little bit to learn the waves of when work came and the ebbs and flows of it. Because whether you're doing weddings, there's like wedding seasons. If you're working in TV, there's pilot season, and then you know, um, kind of like that. What's that like old fable with like the ants or whatever who stockpile everything? Like you kind of have to save and just learn how to do that.
Can you take us through sort of the spectrum of different jobs you've done since you've been out there? And I guess, in your long game, like where do you want to be in the industry? And then tell us all the other types of jobs you've had to do since you've been out there.
Sure. So the first contact that I had out here, he's a director of photography and he's local 600. Out to kind of segue in, I think everyone should try and take the class tomorrow about unions and everything because I had to learn that as well when I first moved out here. The differences between union work.
A business of film class?
Um,
You said a class about unions, you said?
yeah, the other filmmakers coming in tomorrow. I think I saw
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see.
because that was definitely a learning curve to see when there's unions and non-union work out here. I definitely really had to learn that. So I've done non-union camera assisting work and camera operating, and as well as grip work and electrician type of work. Once you get into the bigger types of shows, usually they're union, which can get kind of confusing. But to that end, um, I'm under the production team, under the assistant director team um, of Young Sheldon currently, or was until it ended. Um, and I'm working towards my DGA days, Directors Guild of America. But my ultimate goal will be to eventually start directing shows myself. Um, and there's also a catch 22 in there as well in certain aspects because as well as working, there's also different initiatives like to get into unions. There's the assistant director program, there's director shadowing programs, and even places like if you want to head the camera route, there's like a 2-year program at Panavision. So when you're in class, I definitely say explore as much as you can in all of the classes that they have for different departments, um, and see what interests you the most. As well as when you're working, try and get as many sets as possible. See how many low budget sets you can work for. But once you find what you actually like and have a passion for, I would pursue that and then look into every avenue of how to actually get to that place.
When so you're working on getting into the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, is that right?
Yes.
So what is your pathway? You talked about some of these programs, but what do you have to do? What do you actually have to do to be able to get admitted into the union?
It's a very tedious process, I'd say. But you have to work a certain number of days, technically. So for the DJ, you have to work 600 days on a union set, um, as a PA or as an AD already. To that end, you have to call the DGA once you have your 600 days, let them know that you're applying for this process, and then you have to make a book binder basically with your call sheets organized by show and your pay, either the production reports or your pay stubs. Which, by the way, to backtrack, you should keep all your pay stubs for everything that you worked on. Um, Whether you're trying to go union or not, I think it's a good practice.
What about what by being on all these sets and you have a goal of being a show director down the line? What have you learned about directing by observing and watching other directors?
Mm, mm. You definitely can see a lot of different styles of how people work. Um, for, for one, for television versus film, um, TV directors come and go, where films it's usually just their baby. So to see that kind of aspect is very interesting, and come across a lot of different directors. And I think in every kind of art form, you kind of want to take what you like and then disregard what you don't like, um, and use it to your skill set. I would say one thing that kind of makes me laugh is that you'd be surprised how many big directors don't cut, which actually kind of annoys me a little bit. But I've had some actually really long takes that can be very frustrating to crew members when you're really stuck for 20, 30 minutes and you can't do anything, opposed to some directors who are like really quick and get everything done. I would say from that notion, I really liked when I was in class with you, taking preparation and making shot lists, storyboarding everything out, and you can see the directors who have a binder with them and they're mapped out everything, opposed to people who are kind of winging it. You can really tell the difference.
Can you tell the difference in the finished product too?
No, not really. The editors are geniuses, and no one can really tell when you're watching the show. But as crew members and actors, I think when you're there, you're like, wow, that really shouldn't have taken as long as it should have. And
What would you recommend for the students, that are still in school? What skill sets should they be developing? You went through the program, albeit we've grown quite a bit since then, but what kind of skill sets did you find the most useful for you in your career that you learned at school, and what would you recommend that students cultivate skill set wise?
I definitely want to go back to like interpersonal relationships. I think when I first started the program again, I kind of laughed at a notion. I think it was Dr. Lana as well, when she said to look around at the people next to you or online. You can look at these people right now. But she said that these people here in your classroom will become your best friends. And I didn't join the film program until my sophomore year, so I already made friends from different groups my freshman year, what have you. But then over time, and especially after graduation and living in Los Angeles now that we have like a George Mason community, like, they really have became my best friends and the people I've leaned on to get each other work to help each other out through different situations. And then, as well as actually skill wise, I think I know the programs changed, but I think when I was taking it, we didn't have like a specialization course. I took like a little bit of everything, and um, I think it was an interesting choice that's I'm thinking of. But your actual intro to documentary class, even though I'm pursuing narrative film, that class actually did a lot for me because you guys or you let us like make our own crews and like just go out there and film it ourselves, and we had to wear different hats of every every aspect, and we had to like switch roles each time. So I think if you can learn a little bit of everything, it really helps in the long run, especially um, even down the line if you're not using one of those skill sets per se, you have a knowledge behind it to know how that person next to you is doing their job, and then you can help them out, they can help you out, vice versa.
Very good, very good. I think at this point, I'd like to open up the forum to audience questions. So I'm going to be looking for raised hands here, and as soon as I see one, I will call out your name, and you can turn on your mic and ask a question. Oh, Andrew's telling me there were a couple of questions already. I don't see them. Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. I have to go back here. So here, uh, from Holden Connor, he asks, how do you be friendly without being annoying?
That's pretty funny. I think I think it's just really a positive attitude. I think, especially when you're starting off, people, like I said, will want to help you. So I think if you ask questions and and phrase things in ways that show that you're legitimately interested, um, it can be a little off-putting if you're um, on the mindset of, oh, I can do this, or I already know that. But if you show enthusiasm of like, well, this person's been doing it longer than me, even though I know how, say, I know how to edit in Avid or Premiere, but you don't know what they know or what they've been through to get to where they're at. So I think ask questions and just have a friendly attitude about it. Be humble, I guess.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Holden, for the question. I think that's all I see. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Jesse Benitez asked, what would you do to describe your style, personal artistry as? How do you try to implement this in the work that you do?
I would like to say I'm pretty funny. Um, like I love to just have a good time and have fun with everything I do. Um, you know, it's an emotion. Other things come and go, like sadness or anger, what have you. But especially a lot of the films that I really like to enjoy watching. Um, I did a or I went to a Q&A with Lulu Wang, who was the director for the Farewell movie, and she brought up a good point that really resonated with me. Was that her film was, if you haven't seen it, it's about her grandma that had cancer. Um, but when I watched it, it was actually a little more light energy. And it was funny, and the way she was describing it was like life tends to be hard or whatever, but you can always find a funny moment in it. And I think that's like the best kind of comedy, the best kind of humor, um, because that's what's real, not nothing forced about it. And I think if you just try to find little moments like that in real life, and bring that to your art, whether that's for camera or directing or editing, if you can find those moments in real life, you can find that in a script.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. Are there any resources? This is from Tiffany. Are there any resources you used to get and look for jobs when you were in LADC when you weren't recommended for jobs?
Yes, there's different online. websites that you can go to. Um, Mandy.com, staffmeup.com, um, LinkedIn. There's a couple other places that I've gone to. Um, let's say Production Hub, productionhub.com. Yeah, there's a ton, and there's a few that have worked for sure. And they've been very random to say the least. Um, and I have profiles on all of them, and I update them almost. Well, I got in the routine of updating them almost as soon as a job is done, just so that they know that you're available to work.
Yeah, that's good. Next question is from Hannah Harmison, who writes, "Hi, Tony. I got some advice from another Mason alum in the industry that you cannot get a job in LA without moving there. Do you agree? Do you have to move to LA before you know you have a job?"
A lot of me says yes, but you you have at least have to have visited, and I think um, I can't speak for everybody. I'm sure someone has gotten a job luckily, but I think the truth of the matter is you definitely should be here if you want to work here. I know people have gone to places where they can work bi-coastal, but I think when you're starting off, it's a lot easier for someone to just hire someone who's here at a lower end position than to bring someone far off. Realistically, of course, I think it can be possible.
Holden Connor asks, "Where did you find the first job, like the very first job that leads to all the other ones?"
Again, so I had one connect that helped me out from my work in DC for Travel Channel. He's a DP who lives out here. So when I first moved, he was getting me work on small little online videos and commercials, things like that. And then the big jump was when I was working on that independent web series, and I just luckily met the one right person and told him I'll do it. I'll drop I'll drop a position basically. Oh, and yeah, I guess to say the least, like I was shooting for him on B camera, and I told him I would love to be on a big set. And he said, "That's union work." And I said, "I will PA for you." So if you know, and that was it's pay cut, it's a little bit of a mind. I don't know how to phrase it without,
It's an ego deflator. You go
yeah,
from a
yeah. And you're just like, all right, I'll do the grunt work, I'll do it. It's a pay cut, but it's to a bigger production that I want to be a part of.
Marcus writes, "Hey Tony, I love your advice so far. I see that you have edited some short films that you yourself have directed. I was wondering if you can talk about how you can improve your pacing and rhythm skills as an editor."
Oh, that's a good question. I would love to know more as well. Um, I would, hmm, I'd say try and watch more films, watch old films, learn from the greats. Better than me, I think, just to really watch as much as possible and see how things work and experiment as much as possible, um, and then take use of resources that are open now. Um, Sundance Institute, they have a lot of free online courses right now that I'm still trying to take. Um, to that end, I think you'll always be learning as you go. Um, the way technology, the world, the art keeps evolving. Um, so just keep practicing, just keep finding your own tactic and your own voice will help.
Connor White's writes, "Does that apply to New York as well?" Connor, can you maybe clarify a little bit what your question is referring to? What past thread it's referring to?
Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It was referring to, what was it, the question earlier about looking for a job in LA and having to move there first. 'Cause I know certain areas safer than others.
Gotcha. Yeah. So is that and Tony? I don't know how much experience you've had working in New York, or but can you tell us if you have thoughts on that, Tony? What they are?
I can't say for certain. I haven't worked out in New York. We have some other alums who worked out there. Um, and I do know that they have moved out there. However, I had I did have a friend. Um, I don't remember his last name then. Sammy. I don't remember his last name. But he was finding work before I moved out to LA in New York, and I would say that was a kind of a brutal way to do it. But he was taking the bus just for a couple of days here and there, and then trying to make his connections um, before moving out there. So I think it's a little more doable because if you really wanted to go for it, yeah, you could take a bus, you could take a train, and you could lie. You could really lie and say that you can work local for them, um, if that's something that you really want to pursue.
EJ asks, what are some techniques you used in networking right after college, and how were you able to get behind projects like the Ariana music video?
Um, I would say people are definitely interested in you when you're interested in the whole overall aspect of it. Um, they can kind of sniff out, I feel, at least I feel, if you are trying to just be a brown noser. Like, if this is what you want to pursue, you should really be about it, be interested in it, talk about what's happening in Hollywood or in television currently, or find ways to actually connect to them. You don't need to network in a way of always trying to get them coffee or being the best assistant, but just be a real person, be genuine, and you'll connect with the right people who you'll get in where you need to fit in. Really, that's a phrase like I've heard, and the right people will help you out. And in terms of the Ariana Grande music video, again, that was lucky. That was by chance. I was with some producers who I've been working with for a few months at that point, or so, maybe longer. And I've done commercials and things like that with them. And when I got to set, they gave me a call sheet that said nothing. So I was just like, okay, well, it's just going to be work for a week, which is cool. And then when I got there, everything was confidential. They taped up my phone. They did as much as I could to really not spill the beans. But then it turned out to be an Ariana Grande music video. It was fun.
Nice. Next question is from Jennifer, who asks, what are some common mistakes film students make when they are preparing to move to LA or when they first move to LA?
Mistakes, I would say, is, I mean, hopefully no mistakes. Hopefully everything's a good learning experience and you can build off of that. But I think if you're going to make a mistake, it is like on an attitude level. If you think that you're better than this or you're better than that person, then you probably won't get anywhere. To be honest, it's a collaborative industry, and I mean, you'll find out even in just your classwork, you have to be able to work well with others. You have to work well as a team, and if you want to be the head of a department or leader, just the leader in general, you have to get your people going. You have to be able to lead and follow.
All right. Hannah Harmison asks, how much connection is there, if any, on Young Sheldon between the people on the set and the people working in the writer's room?
What do you mean by that?
Hannah, can you chime in there?
I mean, hi Tony. I mean, um, to the people on set, so you and everyone uh, physically behind the camera, do you know any of the people who are working on writing it? Do you know the writers, assistants, anyone who's working in the pre-production of it?
Yeah. I'm actually friends with a couple of them on Instagram. Um, I think once again, if you're with these people for however long a week, Young Sheldon was actually an easier show because there's kids involved, so there's hour regulations. But if you're with these people for 9 months or so, you should eventually at least feel comfortable to, go and introduce yourself. You should. It's probably welcomed, I'd say. I don't know how it'll be in the future about shaking hands or anything, but you just go up to them and introduce yourself. So yeah, I'm friends with a couple of them on Instagram, like I said, and I wouldn't say that's a good. It's not a strong personal relationship, but I can have coffee with them. I'll eat lunch with them, and I can react to their Insta stories.
Nice. Brian McDonald says, "Hey Tony, you mentioned that when you're first starting off in the industry, it's important to wear a bunch of different hats. What helped you narrow down your decision to pursue a career in directing rather than to go into the camera cinematography route?"
That's interesting. To be honest, it was actually my senior project that made me want to pursue directing. I actually took most of my classes with you, Ben. Actually, it was more catered towards cinematography and camera work, and I took electives in the photography class as well, which wasn't part of the film program. But I loved everything camera, to be honest, and the visual aspect of everything first. But it was ultimately when I made my senior project that I fell in love with directing and putting the whole story together from my viewpoint. And I won't lie when I say that it really might have just been the last year or so. And I've been out here in LA for like 5 years where I actually decided what path I was going to go on for the DGA and hopefully getting to more directing work. Um, but I guess it really just took a lot of exploring again. Um, but I really do love camera and cinematography.
Okay. I don't see another question at this point, but I wanted to ask a question about filmmaking LA in the time of coronavirus. What are folks doing? What is the sense of how are people reacting to this? How is filmmaking going forward or not during this time period?
Oh, wow, it's crazy right now. Um, I really don't know how things are gonna work out. There's definitely a ton of content out there already that has people binging Netflix and Hulu and everything like that. In terms of moving forward, I actually just read an article where I want to pull it up. Um, it's not for certain, but I saw this show All Rise on CBS. They actually are putting up together a way to make a few online episodes with the actors and directors kind of doing this and like FaceTiming over and then the actors are filming themselves, which it's a pretty interesting article. It's on cinemablend.com if you guys want to read it.
Can you post it in the chat section there for us, please, Tony? There's for everyone else. There's also a couple of other links. Bessie has shared the collab Sundance courses, I believe there, and then Cynthia Fuchs, Professor Fuchs, shared the link to tomorrow's session on unions. So please be sure to check those out, and then whenever you get a chance, Tony, just pop that in there. If possible, here we go.
Yeah. But I don't know how it's gonna really move forward. Currently, everything's shut down. There's no really foreseeable time frame until that'll end. So I don't know how it's gonna work out.
Any ideas personally for stuff like any home movie projects or anything like that that you or your friends have been thinking about?
Yes, actually. I am trying to work on this spec commercial ad. Um, and then as well as another alumni of mine who lives out here, Scott Jeske. He made like a 1 minute short film. And if you go on some of these like filmmaking websites or contests, there are a good amount of these home contests that you guys should really partake in if you can. If you have a camera or your iPhone, just give it a shot. There's like different. Do you want me to link these as well? There's some fun contests going on. The students can do just to keep creative if you want to. I'll send another one. But this one here on Lighthouse Studio Org, they have a film competition if there's 4 rounds and you can participate on each one. It's a 1 minute to 4 minute long short films. But I'd say if you have time and the emotional capacity right now to try and be creative, you should. Why not?
Sounds good. I see that the questions seem to have abated. So, as in all of my, whenever I do a documentary interview, I always end with this question. Tony, what would you like to share with us that we've not asked you about today, if anything?
I would just like to say, first of all, thanks again, Ben. Thanks to everyone who's listening and sharing, and good luck to all the students out there. And I know this is a really weird time. I don't even know how other regular classes are going on, but if this is something that you are really truly passionate about, and you're not really too concerned somewhat with time and money, like it can be a great experience. But if those two are really big issues, it's a hard process to overcome. Like the first, getting your feet situated is going to be hard, but it's really rewarding if you really want to pursue this passion.
That's awesome. Well, Tony, the thank yous are coming in across the line there, and I'd like to express my deep gratitude for you tuning in with us this afternoon. It's been very insightful and delightful. So, peace, brother. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again sometime soon.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tony. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, for the union presentation. Steger, over and out.